I don't like going over the same topic twice in a row, but every time I look into this PlayStation situation, things just keep escalating, and I keep wondering myself, why exactly are things happening in the way that they're happening? Because a lot of the stuff that is going down right now doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So we're going to do a quick recap, and then I'm going to be adding additional context that I didn't talk about in the previous video that I find to be particularly relevant for the situation at hand. So without any further ado, let's jump right in. At the beginning of this month, Sony put out a post on their PlayStation blog. They also posted it here on X. And if you guys actually scroll down a little bit, you'll notice that this is one of the most viewed posts of all time at 182.8 million views. It has also been massively ratioed at 66,000 likes to 108,000 comments. And since then, a lot of the PlayStation posts have been getting absolutely ratioed as well. If we just scroll down here a little bit to get away from the very latest ones, you guys can see that this post from FIFA is at 2.9 thousand likes and 3.8 thousand comments. If you guys can see here, 828 likes to 2.3 thousand comments. This is for a VR game that they were posting about. Pretty much anything that they post ends up getting ratioed since they made this announcement. Looks like Dragon Ball gets a pass, but then you look at Rise of Ronin, and it's also getting completely ratioed. Same thing for Marvel took on Fighting Souls, yada yada yada. You guys get the idea. Anyway, the announcement that they did is that physical disc production is ending in January 2028 for new games releasing on PlayStation consoles. Now, this is something that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense if you are a consumer, like if you're invested in the PlayStation ecosystem, because a majority of the PlayStation 5 systems that have been sold are actually the disc version, because there's a lot of people that enjoy physical media. There's a lot of people that have an existing physical library from their PS4 days, and that way they can use that library to play those games on their updated PlayStation 5 hardware. And there's a lot of people that also have physical copies from the PlayStation 5, and they were likely counting on being able to use those copies on the PlayStation 6 because the PlayStation 5 was backwards compatible with the PlayStation 4, and it would just make sense to keep bringing those titles forward. So there's a huge portion of the PlayStation player base that do enjoy physical media. They likely also buy digital games because there are some games that only release on digital. So it just kind of like makes sense for somebody to buy some digital games and some physical games. The thing that they're not considering with this move is that they predict that the people that buy physical media as well as digital media are going to basically just accept everything lying down, and they're like, oh, okay, I guess everything's digital now, and that's that. No, you're going to be losing a lot of those customers that enjoy both physical and digital media. And I guess one of the weirdest things to me is whenever I come across people that argue in favor of the removal of physical media because they literally have nothing to gain and they only have things to lose. And it's just been a really weird experience on social media right now because a bunch of people are straight up arguing like, of course, it makes perfect sense. They don't have to subsidize all of this physical media stuff. They should just do digital. Everything should be digital. It's like, you do understand that the moment that they don't have competition in the form of the physical market, they basically dictate the price and they can, set whatever price they want, which is another interesting thing. I've had people basically say, yes, it's about time because games should be more expensive. And I'm just like, you should charge me more money. It's just like such a weird concept to me. I don't know where these people are coming from. I don't know if they're bots. There's been accusations that Sony has been using bots in social media to kind of like push back against people that are making arguments in favor of physical media, which is, it's just a strange dystopian future we're living in when other gamers are basically arguing against themselves, self-sabotaging themselves, and then asking to be charged more money. I don't know how to answer that because it's just a completely illogical statement, but that's not all. Because if that was it, that'd be that. There's some crazy people out there, I guess. But there's a lot more stuff going around that gets me really confused. So, new thing that came out recently. This was from a video that Alana Pierce put out where she talks about how Sony actually put in place unprecedentedly strict social media communication rules after deciding to abandon physical discs. So what this tells me is that obviously Sony knew that there was going to be backlash because there's a significant portion of gamers that enjoy physical media. And we're going to be talking about the percentages as well, because I know that a lot of people are touting this 85% number. We're going to be talking about that because it's a very interesting thing. But, they knew that there was going to be backlash, but I guess they did not anticipate exactly how much backlash there was going to be, which is why the strict social media communication rules have been unprecedentedly strict. So they knew that they were doing something that is anti-consumer. They just didn't expect at this many players to actually fight back against it. But anyway, since then, an interesting thing has happened, which is Matt Piscatella. And by the way, nobody go after Matt Piscatella. I'm told that he's been getting a lot of really bad posts and stuff like that. I myself am somewhat guilty because I basically mentioned that it just seemed like he's vague posting to fan to flames, because that's kind of like what this post feels like, He posted this and he says only 2 PlayStation video games sold more than 10,000 physical units in the United States during the week ending July 11th, and only 7 sold more than 100,000 physical units year to date. This is only in the US, which I think a lot of people on social media are not really arguing the fact that this is only in the US, because the actual sales are a little bit different when it comes to this data. But again, like I said, we'll talk more about that. Since then, he's also mentioned, because he was called out on some on the change.org petition, and he also mentions that out of those games, none of them reached more than 275,000 copies, which to me is weird. I would expect that some of those games would have reached more copies, particularly taking into consideration that one of those games is Resident Evil Requiem, and Resident Evil Requiem actually sold out in US stores. Like, people could not get their hands on a physical copy, and they were forced to buy a digital edition because there weren't enough copies to go around. But, he posted this stuff, and what happened immediately afterwards is the part that I find weird. And what happened? So VGC reports on it instantly. Immediately after that, Kotaku also reports on it. Polygon reports on it. Eurogamer report on it, and they don't really question these numbers. They don't talk about a whole lot when it comes to these numbers. They're just like, yep, it is what it is. It's looking pretty friggin' bleak. And we all know that, like, when you have a bunch of headlines all saying the same thing, what exactly does this do? This kind of conditions the thinking of people that are on social media, because usually headlines is one of the most important things. Very few of these articles actually give interesting context onto what is actually happening in this situation. They're just like, yep, it's all doom and gloom, baby. It's doom and gloom. Why? Because bad news sells, We also have here from Eurogamer. Then I just went on to Google News just out of curiosity, type 7 games, 100,000. You can see that there's just like article after article after article after article after article after article. And you're just like, Jesus Christ, bro. What is going on? Is anybody going to actually provide some additional context to this? Or just like, yep, it's just like, yeah, it's all doom and gloom, baby. It's all doom and gloom. There was actually an article from CNBC, the one that I read on my previous video. That article gives you a little bit more of an insight to the data. And there's another article that we're going to be getting into here, which is an article from IGN that is very important to this. But let's continue, because there's more things going on here. So then we have here, I guess this one should have been shown afterwards. So from the Matt Piscatella post that we have here, 275,000 units. If we actually look at this data from Alinea Analytics, you can actually see that the numbers are a little bit different. So when you actually look at things worldwide, these are estimates, but these are worldwide estimates. So when it comes to FIFA is mostly like an online type of game. People play FIFA Ultimate Team, all of that stuff. I don't really play this game. But it sold 5 million copies, 12% of which were digital. Then you look at Resident Evil Requiem, like I said, bear in mind that a lot of places sold out a physical edition. So if there were more copies pressed, this data would be more skewed towards physical. But still, in the case of Resident Evil Requiem, it's actually 27% physical, almost 28% physical. Arc Raiders digital only game, doesn't really count. First Light sold 21% physical. Crimson Desert sold 19% physical. And Crimson Desert's an interesting one, because the physical version of Crimson Desert is not really like a proper physical version. Listen, I love the game. I think the game is awesome. Every time I play it, I have a ton of fun. But the physical version of Crimson Desert, particularly when it comes to PlayStation, was just like, oh, here's like half the game or whatever, and then you have to download the rest when you actually are installing the game. still sold 19.9% physical. Forza Horizon is a digital-only game, and Ghost of Yotei sold a whopping 35.4% physical copies, which is a much higher skew than, say, the 5% or 15% that they are touting, which is why they're kind of like cooking a lot of these numbers, but whatever. Just to give you guys a little bit more context, this is a data that paints a different picture. There's a significant number of video games here. I think a lot of you guys would agree. Now, beyond that, we also have the data here, which is where people are drawing the 85% from. So if you actually look here, full game software digital download ratio. Now, it is important to talk about what this is. If you actually scroll down here, you can see that there's an 11 here that tells you what this is. Full game software digital download ratio is calculated by dividing PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 full game software units sold via digital transactions by total full game software units. So what exactly does this mean? Basically, anything that they happen to count as a video game, digital video game, gets divided by the entirety of video game sales that have happened, which includes digital sales as well as physical sales. Now, number one, as you guys will likely be aware, there's a lot of video games that only have digital releases that don't really have physical releases. Those get added up and naturally are going to skew the numbers much further towards that 85% digital. My understanding, considering that whenever you go to the PlayStation Store and you download like a free-to-play game or whatever, you usually receive an email thanking you for your purchase, despite the fact that it is a free-to-play game. I don't know how many of you guys have done this experiment, but try it. Like you just go on the store, download like a free game, you're going to receive a little email saying, oh, thank you for your purchase. Because even though it's like a free-to-play game or a demo, whatever, it kind of like, I don't know if they're counting it as a sale, but it definitely feels like it is considering the emails that they sent to you. So basically free-to-play games are also introduced in there. And it wouldn't surprise me if there's a bunch of like microtransactions that they consider to be full games, being pitched against physical games. And also like, let's say an indie game, like let's say a Hotline Miami. They sell Hotline Miami on there. I forget what the price of Hotline Miami is these days. Let's say it's like $15. That could get compared to like, Crimson Desert, and to them, for this percentage, that has the same value. So you picking up Hotline Miami has the same value as somebody that spent like $70 or however much Crimson Desert costed at release at a retail store. I think I don't need to explain that. That makes absolutely no goddamn sense. But anyways, let's continue. So the 85% data that everybody likes spitting out is only from Q4 2025. If you actually take for the full year, it's actually 78%. And that is with the skewed data that heavily favors physical as well. So do keep that in mind. Then we have the website that I already talked about, where they talk about the sales that they had for the UK. And in here, if you guys notice, Spider-Man 2 was bought more via physical retails than digital ones. It's a 54% physical split. Assassin's Creed Mirage is a 45% split, 45 towards physical. Resident Evil 4, 45 is Resident Evil 4, and Assassin's Creed Mirage is 49%, and 45% of sales of Hogwarts Legacy were also physical as well. So as you can see, the numbers are a little bit different here. Astrobot was also 55% physical, so it's actually more physical than digital. These numbers are from 2024, sure, whatever, but still, I think it's quite relevant. I think it's quite important to see that when you actually compare apples to apples, it's not exactly the same ratio that they're touting here of 85%. And, some percentage that makes absolutely no sense, and it's data just designed to skew things in favor. Oh, we should definitely go all digital. The numbers make sense, right? And it's like, yes, they do make sense for what Sony's objective is, which we'll get into a little bit further in the video. But anyways, there's a couple of more important things here that we should talk about. This comes in an article from Push Square, and it is a quote from Daniel Hamad, which is, as an aside, it is worth noting that while there has been a collapse in both the physical percentage share and units, there will still... I'm assuming there were still 70 million packaged games sold in the past year for PlayStation consoles. This was in May 2026. 70 million physical copies sold. So yes, the digital ratio is set to surpass 80%, but that 20% is still tens of millions of dollars. Just to give you guys an idea. Now, this is one of the most interesting things that I have seen, because it would be interesting if it had happened once, but this is like the fourth time I've seen this argument, which is again being talked about specifically now, which makes absolutely no goddamn sense, and I'll explain to you guys why. But a study reveals, this article was written, by the way, on July 21st, which is the same date that all these other articles were written as well, July 21st, which was around the same time that Matt Piscatella did his post. They posted this article, Game Rant posted this article saying that study reveals how many years PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 discs can remain usable. Number one, the study does not actually mention PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 discs. The study mentions Blu-ray discs, which all the discs that are for PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, and PlayStation 5, all those are Blu-ray discs. So yes, this is the whole conversation that I've seen plastered all over my timeline about the discs are rotting. People are talking about Blu-rays like they're goddamn bananas. You know banana, like you put it in your little fruit thing and then you look away for 5 seconds, then you look back to it and it's chock full of brown spots. People would have you believe that this is what happens with Blu-ray DVDs. Let's take a look at this study that they're talking about. This is a study on longevity of media. So they're saying here that CDRs last for over 100 years. These CDRs last from 50 to 100 years. Now, the interesting thing is they don't actually talk about what is the testing methodology that they've used in this study. It's just like, here's a table. Here's how long this media is expected to last. Another very interesting thing that I found is that the erasable Blu-rays, so these are like the ones that you can buy in order to store data on them. So these are not the ones that are factory pressed. They estimate that the average longevity of a erasable Blu-ray, which usually has less quality than a factory-pressed Blu-ray, usually is supposed to last less time, is supposed to have less longevity. This has been the case for every piece of, optical media that I've used throughout my life. The ones that you can actually write, and especially the ones that you can rewrite, those are usually the ones that last less time, because the more you write on them, the more they get used up, and eventually through wear and tear, they start becoming corrupted. And they say that the average on these ones is 20 to 50 years. And then the factory pressed ones, 10 to 20 years. 10 to 20 years. And then there's these ones, which is 5 to 10 years. And I'm just like, okay, this is just absolutely insane. This makes absolutely no goddamn sense. So to me, this study is just plain wrong. That's number one. Number two, notice how this was reported as if it's like, oh, this is news. Study reveals, blah, 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 blah. Published July 21st. It's like, okay, so when exactly was this study published? Oh, 16 years ago. Interesting. It was revised in 2019, but I'm assuming they didn't really change much. I don't know what they've done in 2019. But yeah, it was revised in 2019. So at best, this information is 7 years old and is now being reported in what seems like, I don't know, this almost sounds like conspiracy theory. This almost sounds like, yo, give me a tinfoil hat. For some strange reason, everybody just started reporting on this, assuming this is fact, and it is what it is. And there's almost nobody talking about the number of copies, for instance, which is 70 million packaged games sold. There's almost nobody talking about that little nugget. And all the things being talked about is like, 7 games, 100K copies in the US for the few people that actually bothered to even add that little extra nugget of context. But anyways, regardless of that, the information in here, to my knowledge, is completely wrong. There's a different website that I started looking into, and in this one, they go through ISO methodology and yada, 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 basically just like a bunch of boring stuff. You can look this up if you want to, Pioneer, Blu-ray.eu, whatever. I'll try to link this in the description of the video if you guys want to check this one out. And they actually tell you what is the results of their testing, and this is like accelerated aging testing and all of that stuff, so it's even more likely that the Blu-ray drives will fail. This respects ISO standards and all of that stuff, and the testing methodology, yada yada yada. I'm not an expert on this shit, but it's like, depending on the disc, depending on the how well you can serve it, which I kind of feel like this is common fucking sense. Like if you put your Blu-ray discs on a fucking dank garage that has a high level of humidity, it has no goddamn light source, there's literally streams of water running down the walls from bad humidity, there's fucking mold, and like, you know, if you're gonna store them in an environment like that, yeah, they'll rot. Guess what else will rot? Literally everything you put in that fucking garage. Yeah, makes sense. So in here they talk about, you know, depending on the temperature that you store them at, yada, yada, yada. But like on average, most of them will last over 100 years. And this to me feels like a conservative estimate. So there's like more details on this study if you want to like click on the PDFs and whatever. But basically, I'll tell you what, I just grabbed my, because I have a PlayStation 3 that I bought back in like 2010. Considering that a lot of these Blu-ray drives, Blu-ray discs are supposed to die within like 10 years, you know, I figured, you know, mine should be dead, right? Because, you know, I have a PS3. Let me actually just mute this. And I just did this whole thing on Twitter in one go. But basically, I grabbed this game, which says there 2006. I think this is my oldest Blu-ray disc. And I also did Demon Souls as well. But basically, I popped that in there. And it just ran. It just ran fine. There were no issues whatsoever. I haven't even hooked this up in God knows how long. I had this in storage and my kid's been playing with it. That's why it's all dinged up. But yeah, it ran fine. No issues whatsoever. There's long loading times on PS3. We all know that. At least those of us that actually played back in PS3 days, we know that this console has long loading times. Doesn't even install the games. It just like reads it off the disc and it was running fine. Like you can see the intro running here. Then I went through and I changed it and I put in Demon Souls. I actually loaded up my old save and I got to see my very first Demon Souls character also running fine, strangely enough. Now, Demon Souls is one from 2009. I'm pretty sure that's when that disc was pressed. So that would be 17 years old. So damn, I better enjoy it for the next 3 years because it's going to explode. Blu-ray discs are not bananas. Please do not fall for this dumbassery because it's just so frustrating to see people parroting this stupid-ass study here that is just blatantly wrong. Unless, again, like I said, you're storing your Blu-ray discs on a goddamn moldy garage. Which you shouldn't be doing if you're a reasonable person. You should store them in a stable environment. And if you do that, let me promise you, most Blu-ray discs are going to outlive everybody talking about this particular topic, all right? Most Blu-ray discs are going to be around long after we've all been eaten by maggots, okay? I want you to keep that in mind. But yeah, so I did the test, and guys can check my Twitter account if you guys want to see that. And then, as if it wasn't enough, this part was hilarious. PlayStation Network went down. But how are we supposed to think this is? Like, yeah, guys, all digital future, it's going to be fine. And the funny thing is, I've even seen accounts that were celebrating that. They're like, oh yeah, even though everything's down, I can still play my offline games. It's like, this is a reason for you to celebrate? You literally can't register digital codes right now, bro. If GTA 6 came out today, you would not be able to input the code on PlayStation to be able to actually play it if you had like the code in a box. Hell, it doesn't matter if you had the code in a box or if you had the digital version bought from the PlayStation Store, you wouldn't be able to play it today because the network was down, so the game would not be able to authenticate and apply the license to the game. But these people were celebrating it. Okay, it's fucking insane. And then, naturally, we have one of the nicest people in existence when it comes to, the gaming industry. Everybody loves good old Yves Guillemot from Ubisoft. I know I do. But basically, Yves Guillemot obviously came out friggin' frothing at the mouth and like, oh my God, finally, a digital-only future. I'm so happy. PlayStation killing discs has upsides. Of course it has upsides. On your fucking stock price, you goddamn ghoul. You friggin' devil. Yeah, of course. Because y'all get more control.
You get to control exactly what people get to have or not. You remember the same people that literally took the Crew away from you? Like if you bought the original Crew game, they literally delisted that game from your consoles. Those people are saying that like, oh man, if they kill this is better for us. Bro is saying that you're going to get cheaper consoles because of this. Isn't that good? You actually think that we're going to see any benefit whatsoever to physical media going away? Listen, I got a bridge to sell you in Jupiter, okay? But of course, you know, the reason these guys say this is because this is the same company in which one of their execs has told us a couple of years ago. Ubisoft exec says gamers need to get comfortable not owning their games for subscriptions to take off, because this is what they actually want. They don't want you to buy games. They want subscriptions that they can control, subscriptions that licenses go and, you know, you have a license for a certain amount of time and then you don't have a license, so games come and go like a Netflix. I'm not playing my video games like that. It's not for me. So no thanks. I'll take a hard pass, Ubisoft execs, you people that are the absolute scum of this industry. I hate all of you. Yeah, it's just that simple. If you're an executive at Ubisoft, I actually hate you. Like, I'm sorry. I know it is what it is. I don't like those people. But we then have one more little nugget that we have to touch on. So PlayStation removes physical media. Okay, that means everybody needs a PlayStation Network account. Uh-oh, what's Rurikhan going to say now? You guys remember the Helldivers 2 drama when people wanted everybody on Steam to get a PlayStation Network account? And if you didn't get a PlayStation Network account, you weren't going to be able to play Helldivers 2 anymore? Turns out, a lot of countries can't have PlayStation Network accounts. If you actually go to the official PlayStation website in their country selector, this will tell you the countries that PlayStation Network operates in. Here's the list. Now, I used AI for this. I know that a lot of people are going to be like, AI slop, AI is going to be wrong. Okay, fine. If AI is wrong, you do the research and you post in the comment section where AI has failed us. But otherwise, I'm not going to be going through the trouble of checking all of this information because it's way too much for me to process for a simple video like this. But PlayStation is approximately in 70 to 73 countries. This is where PlayStation Network support is supported, which means that if you're a country outside of these officially supported 73 countries, your choices are you buy a PlayStation, you buy physical games, and then you can play those video games. That's kind of like how it works. If you have to buy them digitally, you need to have a PSN account, and legally speaking, you can't have a PSN account unless you're in a country that's officially supported through PSN. Now, you can say, oh, but I can get an address from the UK and then I can just, you know, set up a UK account or an address from the US and set up a US account or an address from a country that's close to yours, set up an account that way. I'm just going to say that's illegal. That breaks terms of service, but, you know, it is what it is. You can argue in favor of that. You can argue in favor of that. Absolutely. That is your prerogative. To me, it's like, hey, it's not officially supported by PSN. Not to mention that if they find that out, they can probably just ban your account and then all the money that you gave them just goes away. They keep the money. They don't give you the money back. They just take your games away. That's how it works. But anyway, continuing onwards, Steam, on the other hand, because I compared it to Steam because it's just what makes the most sense, because Steam is probably one of the most distributed, online digital gaming stores, is support on 273 countries. Now, out of those 37, out of those 237 countries, or up to 237 countries, up until now, people had the option to buy a PlayStation console and then buy physical media for that console and then play the video games that way. When we get to January 2028, they have that option for like PlayStation 4 and for PlayStation 5 and whatever. But any new game that comes out after that, that's gone. Those countries legally cannot play those video games on a PlayStation system. That's just donezo. And I guess that for a lot of people that are arguing in favor of digital only, and so, you know, they just look at those, 150 countries, give or take. They just look at those 150 countries and go, you know what? Fuck you. You don't deserve to have video games, bro. It's just that simple. But now, the big question comes, but why exactly are they doing this? And this should be obvious. But fine. IGN actually spelled it out. For Sony, going all digital for new game releases will earn it more money from every sale at a time when console sales are expected to plummet due to their rising cost. So basically, consoles are going to, the sales of consoles are expected to drop significantly due to increasing hardware costs, which, as we know, is caused by the AI bubble. But yeah, for first-party PlayStation games such as The Last of Us, Sony will only keep around 65% of the money from a physical copy, with around 30% going to the retailer and roughly another 5% on manufacturing costs. Meanwhile, for a physical copy of a third-party game such as the Activision-published Call of Duty, Sony will get a licensing fee, likely around 15%. So basically, they're only making 15% out of the latest Call of Duty game. For downloads, however, the margins are much higher. For a first-party game sold via Sony's own PlayStation Store, the company obviously keeps 100% of the revenue. For a third-party game, such as Call of Duty, meanwhile, Sony keeps a 30% cut, roughly $21 for a $70 game. Piers Harding Rolls, games industry analyst at Ampere, has said a lot has changed over the course of the last two generations. Console gaming is the last holdout for physical media in the gaming sector, but physical product has been declining in importance. He said in a post on the Ampere website. Back in 2013, when the PS4 launched, Ampere data showed only 13% of total full game unit sales for Sony consoles were digital, including digital-only games. Fast forward to 2025, and this digital share of full game purchases stood at almost 80% of the total. Inevitably, there will be concerns from PlayStation gamers around various aspects of this announcement, including choice, accessing older physical games on new consoles, the ability to collect physical games, and game preservation. Game preservation being a very important portion of this, by the way, because a bunch of games just have a way of disappearing. And the only way for you to play them is to actually buy them physical. Like a good example is, I believe, Battlefield Hardline, I think, is gone. I don't know if that's still on store sales. Somebody was telling me in my chat that game's not on store sales. I think it's not Burnout. There's another racing car game that I also saw recently somebody picked up. That game's also gone. There's tons of games. As a matter of fact, here's an interesting little nugget for you guys. The funniest thing about the disc rot argument, which is false, by the way, the funniest thing about that argument is that even at 20 years, those Blu-ray discs were able to outlast the PlayStation 3 digital store. So even with the fake numbers that these people are putting out, those discs that are going to be rotting over the next couple of years, according to the numbers, they were still able to outsell their digital storefront. It's impressive. However, the purchasing trends of gamers are clear. I don't think they are clear. I think what's been happening is quite simply there's a lot of people that buy physical, and a lot of those people also buy a couple of digital games. And when you skew the numbers the way that you've been skewing them, yeah, it just doesn't make that much sense. One analyst said fans of physical media had their chance and blew it. So now it's our fault. It's our fault. We blew it, guys. There's no going back. If Gamers and Preservationists had bought more physical games, Sony wouldn't have seen the digital sales ratios that justify this decision. I mean, maybe if Sony released more physical games, we would have bought them. The fact is, a large portion of those 85% digital-only games, they're digital-only. They don't have a physical edition, and that's why they skew the numbers so high, but whatever. Digital game sales carry essentially 100% incremental margin. The cost of the physical package, shipping, and retailer margins can be more than 20% of sticker price. So this is the actual reason. They want a bigger piece of the pie. That's it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They want a bigger slice of the pie. That's why they're doing it. And I guess they just didn't expect so many people to actually care about physical. One of the things that I will say, I'm not under any illusions that they're going to backtrack. I don't think they're backtracking. It is what it is. I'm interested in physical media. I want physical media to be around. I have a large physical collection of video games, both for, everything from PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 5, Switch 2. Hell, I have some Wii U games, some Wii U physical games that I like. I have a bunch of physical games, and if I ever was to get back into consoles, because currently I'm mostly playing on PC, and for some strange reason, people seem to think that because I play mostly on PC, I don't get to argue in favor of physical media. It's like, no, I get to argue in favor of the future that I want to see for gaming. And if I ever want to jump back into consoles, I want to be able to buy physical media. The people are just so friggin' weird about this whole thing. It's insane. But yeah, the amount of coordination between all of these articles that have gone out over the last couple of days, the fact that I've been seeing my timeline completely flooded with disc rot conspiracy theories, like, your discs, they're gonna rot. They're like bananas. What are we doing? And the amount of people that are arguing in favor of Sony basically shooting themselves in both feet because you're basically just going to be paying more money for video games. I don't understand. I don't know what you're doing. You sound like a crazy person. Anyway, that's it. I just wanted to add the additional context. Let me know how you guys feel about this situation. This is absolutely insane. Yeah. See you guys in the next one.